it's extremely rare for Julius Malema and the ANC to sit around the same fire and agree on anything. They are usually on opposite sides of every major political argument in South Africa, and they fight for the same voters with completely different branding. That is why it matters that right now they are speaking with one voice.
This is the South Africa
Will
we
this
know
be a
and
topic
love?
of discussion?
#Cupcake must go. Your guys.
Both the ANC and Julius Malema have condemned the United States for its strikes on Venezuela. South Africa also moved quickly to the United Nations and called for an urgent Security Council session after the US confirmed the operation and the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. But before we go any further, if you care about political analysis that does not rely on slogans, then subscribe to this podcast. Make sure that you turn on the notifications. Now, let me be very clear about what this episode is and what it is not. This episode is about a country that has lost its backbone and that increasingly chooses to make noise about international events instead of facing what is happening in its own house. It is about a government that reacts faster to a crisis it cannot fix than it does to crises it has created and refuses to confront. Because the most striking part of South Africa's responses was not the content, it was the speed, the certainty, and the performance of moral authority. When something explodes far away, we suddenly find urgency, we suddenly find outrage, we suddenly find the language of justice. But when South Africans are dealing with daily violence, collapsing services, corruption, falling infrastructure, and deepening social division, that urgency fades into press statements and excuses. The moral megaphone disappears. So the question is not simply, why did South Africa condemn the strike? The question is, why is South Africa so eager to fight battles that do not directly affect it, while it is losing the battles that do? This is why I said this is about a country that has lost its backbone. When a government is confident, it prioritizes, it governs, it fixes, it stabilizes. When a government is weak, it performs. It reaches for international theatre because theatre is easier than reform. And this is exactly where the Malema piece becomes so revealing. Julius Malema condemns US action against Venezuela and he uses language that implies moral clarity. Yet Malema is also the man who repeatedly sings "Kill the Boer" and then insists it's harmless, historical or symbolic. That contradiction is not a side issue. That contradiction is the point. You cannot condemn violence abroad while normalizing the rhetoric at home. And you also cannot claim the moral high ground internationally while helping to undermine social cohesion domestically. Now, this brings us to the uncomfortable political layer. South Africa is not reacting to Venezuela in a vacuum. South Africa is reacting at a moment when the United States has been increasingly critical of South Africa's domestic direction, especially regarding race-based policies and the way power is being justified through racial engineering. That creates pressure, it creates defensiveness, it creates a desire to fight back somewhere safer. So we have to ask whether this is genuinely about Venezuela or whether this is South Africa grabbing a global headline to regain moral footing and to position the United States as the villain at a time when South Africa itself is being scrutinized. In other words, is this principle or is this bruised pride? Is this a coherent foreign policy or is it revenge politics dressed up as diplomacy? There is also an ideological pattern here. South Africa often aligns itself with a global South posture of opposing Western intervention and emphasizing sovereignty and non-interference. In that framework, condemning the US is almost predictable because it reinforces the identity South Africa wants to project internationally. But here is the problem. Identity is not governance. You do not earn credibility by being loud about principles abroad while your own society is being hollowed out at home. And that is why I keep coming back to the phrase, a country that has lost its backbone. Because it takes backbone to say we are going to fix our house first. It takes backbone to confront internal incitement, not excuse it. It takes backbone to stop dividing citizens by race while claiming unity. So yes, South Africa can condemn what it believes violates international law. It can call for the UN Security Council to meet. That part is not inherently wrong. But When condemnation becomes a reflex and when global outrage becomes a substitute for local responsibility, then it is no longer about justice. It becomes noise. And we should be honest about what that noise is doing. It is distracting people. It is signaling virtue. It is manufacturing unity where there is none. It is giving political rivals like the ANC and Malema a rare opportunity to sit around the same fire and look righteous together. Meanwhile, the real fires at home keep burning. It is about a state that is choosing international theatre over domestic backbone, and a political culture that condemns violence where it is convenient, but refuses to confront the violence it feels in its own language. And until that changes, the loudest statement we make abroad will only highlight the silence we tolerate at home. That's all from me. I'll see you again at the next one.